it on? Good morning, everybody. So, if you can't hear me, you might need to bring on your headset and have channel 3.
Not too close to the microphone.
Okay, this works much better.
Yeah, this is
Perfect.
okay.
Good. Oh, the tech is working. Very nice. That's really nice. Okay, good. Nice to see all of you. I'd like to welcome you here to this Nordic session. We have some presenters from Finland and from Denmark, and it's organized by Business Finland and the Innovation Cluster in Denmark, Clean, where we have a special innovation network called Smart Energy. Today we will have 5 presentations. We will have 3 before the break and 2 afterwards, and then we will end up with a session discussion or panel discussion at the end. So we will come abroad quite a number of solutions that have been implemented both in Finland and Norway and Denmark in order to optimize the utility grids and coordinate it with consumption side. So we will also hear a little bit about load management on residential buildings. I would like to invite our first speaker, Pia Salokoski, who is going to talk about the smart energy ecosystem and test platforms in Finland. And just forward on this one, and when you're done, I'll just.
So good morning also on my behalf. I'm Pia Salokoski, coming from the Business Finland. And the first few words about Business Finland. So we are a Finnish funding agency for innovations, but also export activities, export promotion. We have over 40 offices outside Finland, and of course also invest in activities. So if you are interested to invest in Finland after my presentation, please don't hesitate. Okay, but what I'm going to tell you today is about our smart energy solutions and activities and about those test beds. So we all know when we walk here around that the whole energy sector is in the middle of the major transformation. In all exhibition centers in stands here, they tell you about the smart solutions, smart meters. And of course we need new technology to be able to create a new energy system where we have a lot of renewable energy, weather dependent, not so flexible than the earlier production, but we also have to have strong grids, smart grids which we can control. That's why we see that here in the smart energy sector we need a kind of systematic change, not only changing the production technology or not only the grids, but we need to change the whole system. So we are able to use all the renewable we can produce and also add storages, which is of course very important in the Nordic countries where we have dark, cold winters. And not only electricity, we also need changes for the heating and cooling. Heating of course in the cold countries, but cooling also as important as the heating. So in that sense we have started to think a little bit different this energy transition. We are not so much looking the individual technology, we want to look it as a whole, and that's why we are creating new ecosystems where the companies, research organizations, other stakeholders can together develop the new energy system. So we need to have that all those important sectors they could be integrated together. They can work together. We can smartly control the whole system. That's why we are also in our smart energy program building a new test platforms. A little bit different platforms where we can test and pilot and then also, of course, build the commercial solutions for the new smart energy system. In our program, we have few test beds already ongoing. I'm going to tell you more about this smart Otaniemi test platform and about this Åland Islands demonstrations. But we have also batteries from Finland, which is already quite big ecosystem. And this research project here, this called HEILA, there we develop kind of tool using the AI technology, how the platforms can communicate with each other. So we are not building separate platforms which have no connection to each other. We want that all these platforms, also outside Finland, could communicate and change data and that kind of things. And all these platforms are kindly integrated to each other. Maybe in the future they can form a Facebook of platforms where they change the information and they can also repair themselves. So more about this smart Otaniemi and Åland Islands demonstrations. They are both unique locations, unique places. In smart Otaniemi there is a VTT, the Technical Research Center of Finland. Their research center is in Otaniemi, also Aalto University campus. There are hundreds of startups around that area and 5G network, which we are really needed to this energy transition because we need to move the information and data very quickly in seconds or half seconds to be able to build the flexibility to the system. There are also a lot of student houses and the building companies are also involved in these test platforms to build these new solutions, new smart solutions for the houses, also for the student houses. And of course, students, young people today, they are very eager for the change. They already have kind of mobile living. They use the mobile phones for everything. So it's very easy to activate them to be real consumers and participants to these test platforms. So we want that this smart Otaniemi would be a kind of living lab with real customers, because there are also other activities, not only the student houses, also normal people houses and all those technical and research center activities. So there we want to really develop and demonstrate the system level solutions. And in Smart Otaniemi we are now in the innovation ecosystem phase, but hopefully in the future it will be a business ecosystem. Then about the Åland Island demonstration. That's also very unique location because it's very comprehensive but small enough, like a real society but in small sites. It's very interesting to see that the Åland Islands, it's almost 0.5% of everything in main Finland. It's 0.5% of the Finnish GDP, electricity consumption, population, all those things. So when we demonstrate there, it's quite easy to scale it up to the higher level and the bigger solutions. In Åland Islands we have the excellent wind and solar conditions, and that's why they want to be a 100% renewable energy uses and production. And Åland Island is also self-governed, so it's able to test also new regulation models there, which could not be so easy to test in the main Finland. So here you can see what is already ongoing there. In Otaniemi it started about a year ago. We have already there about 40 companies together with the research organizations building these test beds and doing some pilots. As you can see there are several pilots already ongoing and new ones are going to start already this year. There is, for example, the local flexibility market development. It's the idea to have a really flexibility marketplace there using blockchain to be able to have all those consumers also involved in this flexibility market. Of course, also we are building now the building level intelligence, smart charging systems. We want to test different kind of charging systems. And also maybe you have already heard about the deep heat solutions in Otaniemi area. So of course the heating is also in very big role because with the electricity it brings also the flexibility to the system. And of course then the enabling technologies, AI, blockchain and others. We have a lot of research going on in that area. And then in the Åland Island demos, it's just starting now. It's still on the planning phase, but they have started a new company who takes care of now this demonstration. And there, of course, the production, the renewable production plays a large role. They are planning to build more wind power and of course also solar, because the Åland Islands is quite south in Finland, so the sun is shining more than in north parts. Of course, this market mechanism, flexibility you need there if you want to be a 100% renewable energy uses. And of course, storages. In Åland Islands, we will test different kind of storages, heat storage and also, of course, batteries for the electricity storage. In a big picture, these test platforms are open also for the international participation. So if you are interested or you know the organizations which could be part of these test platforms, please contact me or my colleagues here. Thank you. Do we take questions now? Okay.
I think we have time for a few questions. Anyone? Okay.
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, then I would like to introduce our next speaker, Anna Salomoni from Finland as well, talking about apartment buildings as virtual batteries.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Anne Salonen, and I'm come from a Finnish energy company called Fortum, and I'm now showing you our newest service where we can use the apartment buildings as a virtual battery and doing some heat demand response. First, a few words about our company. So we are operating in the Nordic countries, Finland, Sweden, Norway, also Poland and Russia, and newest we have some solar doing in India. We have 2.5 million electricity consumers, and we are trying to now find some new service to our customers. And we are traditionally energy production company. We have products electricity and heat, but we know that the world is changing, so we have to change also, and we want to be the first company to have this consumer solution also, some smart solutions for consumers. We have 9,000 professionals in the company, and our mission is that we want to have solution for a cleaner world. So everything should be like the renewable and smart systems. The traditional way of making energy is that we have power plants, we use oil, coal, gas, and then we have the network, and then we have the consumer. And we are producing the energy so much how much the consumers are using that. But now we are seeing that the world is really changing in this energy field, and there is a lot of solar power coming and wind power coming, and we have to find solution how to balance the grid. Also the ocean and the geothermal power are coming, and we really believe that there is it showing? That we need different kind of things, how we can balance the network, both electricity and the heat network. We need different kind of solutions, and one of thing is how we can do more things together with customers and to consumers, and also use this demand side response to balance the network and to balance the heat load in the network. In our solutions we have the power plants, then we have the heat network, and then we have the consumers who is using the heat. The production is, as I told, it's the traditional way is that how much the consumers are using, we are using the production so much. In the new system, we want to have two-way communication with the buildings. So we know how much the building needs heat, and we can forecast the future in a short time, like one day a heat, how much the building are needing heat. With this smart heat solution, we can also steering the heat inside the buildings. So we know exactly that, okay, this building needs that amount of heat. And in sometimes is, for example, if the people are using much of hot water, we can lower the heat inside the buildings. So we can balance the heat demand in great way. And the people doesn't notice inside the buildings, because actually the heating network inside the building is quite big battery. So if the heating is off like 1 hour or couple of hours, the resident doesn't even notice that there is something happening in their building. And that's something great that we can really do something smart in the future. And then because we have this production side, we can even do that if we have electricity price is high in our CHP power plants, we can load the heat sometimes in the building. So we can really see the situation in the building in the real time. And we have the whole chain, value chain, from the resident to the power plants. Here you can see how much the heat demand is going up and down. It of course depends really much from the outside temperature. So if it's cold outside, you need more heat inside. But it of course depends how much the people are using the hot water. And for example, office buildings, in the morning they are put the air condition up and running. There is a peak load in the heat system in that time. So in the future we want to balance that heat demand to more like stable, and that we have the whole control of the system. And the basic situation is that we have this CHP going there, combined heat and power plants. They are producing like the stable, the production, and then we are using the heat boilers that it can't be only a couple of hours per day that we are using one heat boilers. So, and of course it's quite expensive to make the boilers up and running and then take it down after a couple of hours, so it's not wise, and most of the heat boilers are using the fossil fuels, oil and gas, so we are trying to get rid of that in the smart system. In our service, we are putting the sensors in apartments, in every apartment, and the sensor measures temperature and humidity almost real time. And so we know actually what is the situation in every building, in every apartment. Then we have this artificial intelligence who knows always the optimum, how much every building needs the heat. In every 10 minutes it calculates the heat demand in every building. And we have a Finnish company called Lean Heat who is our partner and who is doing the artificial intelligence part of the system. If you want to know about that more, here is Vesa Jaakkola somewhere there, so you can ask more. And also there is a brochure where is the Lean Heat mentioned. What is the benefit for the system for the residents? They get more stable indoor quality. They get data from their apartment situation, and we have to get the feedback that they really like the system. And of course, we can produce the heat more ecologically and really get the system benefit from the production side. In our system we have a user interface to resident and also for the building owners, landlords, housing managers. And the resident can see their own status from the application. So what is the current temperature in their apartment? We can get some recommendations to them, what is the good level of the temperature, and also what is the history, how much the temperatures has varied there. And then we are showing what is the average temperature in every building. And that's something that resident has been really interesting, that they can compare their own temperature with what is the average in the whole building temperature in other apartments. And also they have been really interesting about the humidity. At least in Finland it's not so common that people are measuring the humidity inside the apartment, but for example in the winter time it's quite dry, the air. I can see here also the air is quite dry, so you may have some problems with your eye, it's itching, or you have the flu. And then if you are putting some humidifier there, the situation gets better. So when you see the data, you can do some actions based on the data. But if we don't measure the data, you don't know what is the situation. And the resident can give feedback also via our application, that is everything okay, is it too cold, too hot, too dry, is there some other problems. And the feedback goes direct to the building owners with their own user interface. So we really have the connection to the resident also in our system. And the resident can see also in their application what other residents in the same building has got the feedback. So we try to be open that everybody knows what is the situation in the building, and if there is something we have to work out, then we can work out based on the data. This other picture is from our housing association or the building owner user interface, so they can see easily what is the situation in the whole building. Is there some apartment that is too cold, or in the red if there is apartment which is too hot, and they can go in that apartment and do some fixes. So they don't have to go in every apartment and measure it in one time, because we have the data, we have the history from every apartment. You really see the situation and you can do some maintenance work even before there is a problem. And for example, there is some use cases that in the whole building there has been too moisture in apartments, and then the ventilation system has been broken. So the system recognized that kind of things before even the people notice that there is something wrong. So it's really that we can use the data in the future, I think, even more. We have this great use case, Espoon Asunnot. It's the rental housing corporation owned by city of Espoo. They have 15,000 apartments in Espoo to the people who are living, and they are renting the apartments. And the properties they have, it's 300. We have now contract that we are putting our smart heat system to every apartment in Espoon Asunnot, and we can use the apartment as a virtual battery. So that's a connection all to our system that we can really steering the heat demand inside the building. The customer benefits the system that they can monitor apartment situations and the building condition, get the intelligent alerts from if there is something wrong, because you can imagine if there is a 15,000 apartment and almost 30,000 people living in the apartments, it's quite many feedbacks coming to they are calling the residents, and now they can see the data if there is really something wrong in the apartments and do some reparation. The customer can get more stable and comfort room temperatures, and of course cost savings. We can steering the heat in the smart way. And also they have really liked that they had the feedback channel from the residents, so they get the feedback direct from their reports. And also they can get the CO2 neutral heat, so they want to be forerunner in the ecological way. So that's really great cooperation with this, and we are now installing the sensors and the devices in the end of this year, and then we are starting to do the demand side response in next year. So I hope after 1 year we have good results, what we have learned here and how the system really works and what benefits both customer and Fortum gets from the system. So this smart system, everybody benefits. So the consumer gets healthier indoor climate and get the real-time measurements from the apartments. Housing companies or the building owners, they get heat cost savings, and they can base the decision making based on the data. And for district heating companies, we get the flexibility for the district heating production and the whole system, and also of course getting the cost savings in that side of too. And the whole energy system, we think that the district heating network we can use as balancing the whole energy system, because there is coming more wind and solar power. So actually this that we can use also the building as a battery, we can get more wind and solar power in the whole energy system. Yeah, thank you.
I think we have time for some questions.
Thank you. Have you got a contract with housing organization or with the own of apartments?
Sorry, it's a little bit.
Heat company have a contract with managers of all house or with own of apartments?
In Finland, the normal situation that we have contract with housing companies, not in apartment level. No, we have the housing association is our contract.
Do you monitor the heat consumption per apartment?
No,
No.
we are not doing that in Finland, but I know that in some part of Europe you are measuring that.
Okay.
But it's that the housing association is paid the heat bill, and then it's like in every month fee that the residents are paying that. But we believe that it's coming also in Finland, that everybody wants to pay how much they have used. So somehow I think it's coming. It's already in electricity and it's coming in water also. So you are only paying how much you have used.
Yes, because you can improve your AI algorithms by knowing the real consumption of each apartment compared to the temperature use or the temperature in the apartment.
That's the we have been thinking about and asking how the residents feel about, and there is something that we can do that okay, it's 22 degrees, then you don't pay anything extra. If you want to have 24, then you pay a little bit extra, or if you are okay with 20, you get some discount. Yeah,
but you can go further than this. You can if you have two similar apartments that have the same temperature but have different heat consumptions, you might have a window or door that's leaking, or so that is a way for the building manager to identify faults in the buildings.
Yeah, that's great tool because we have the data from apartments. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Yuri from Resulta. We are an ESCO company and we are doing similar project with the biggest district heating company in our country, but we stop at the subheating station level, also because of the privacy regulation and so on, and I'm interested how you solve the privacy issue of getting data from the apartment as an end point.
Yeah, it's the privacy issue is of course very important, and if the resident doesn't want to have the sensor in apartment, we don't put it, because most of the people, they are interested in their own apartment situation. They want to have the data from there, and because we have this user interface, they can see the data from apartment. But if somebody doesn't want to have the sensor, then we just don't put it, and still you can get the good picture from the whole building. If there is like 1 or 2 apartment, you don't get the measurements. Yeah, but we cannot force anybody.
Yeah, so you cannot incentivize them to actually or charge them more for if they don't want the heat sensor in their apartment. So we stopped at the level of heating station to motivate the building owners, and we will gradually introduce the system that will penalize them for not being effective and efficient. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Do you always need to deploy your own sensor systems, or can you just connect to existing building automation systems and building control systems?
Yeah, it depends the system. We can integrate. We have different type of sensors. We are using LoRa, Sigfox, SIMAP. We have different type of sensors in building. But if there is already sensors, of course we can use them if we just get the data from the cloud system. But sometimes it's quite hard to get the data from the current automation system.
Yeah, that's true, I know.
But hopefully in the future it's be more open that everybody can use the data.
And just a second question, how long does it take for your AI algorithms to learn how the building behaves?
Yeah, it's something, we are collecting the data 1 month, and then the system learns how exactly this building works. So 1 or 2 months.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Who is the owns of these meter systems?
Who
is the owns?
The customer owns the system. Yes.
Thank you.
Do you have any data regarding energy savings in this project?
The average has been like 10% savings from the heat consumption, but of course you get savings also the maintenance part, but it's harder to calculate how much you have saved the maintenance cost.
What measure did you take in order to do the energy savings?
Sorry.
What measures did you have in order to achieve those savings?
Sorry, it's really hard to hear. It's
The question was, what measure did you take in order to measure or to achieve the energy savings?
It of course depends the building situation, but many times there is quite high apartment temperatures inside apartments, so we can lower the temperatures. And of course, because the system knows the weather forecast, so many times in the autumn and then springtime, there is a situation that in the nighttime there is quite cold and they are putting heat inside the building, and then the sun is getting shining at the daytime. So, but the system doesn't understand the traditional system that the sun is actually heating the apartments. So we can, because we know that the forecast that next day the sun will shine, so we don't put in the nighttime so much heat inside the building, so we get the savings also that. And then we can lower the peak capacity. At least in Finland it's quite common that district heating companies there is like this fixed fee, and it's based the highest peak consumption in the building. So with this system we can lower the peak consumption, so the savings are coming also in that side.
Do you control the temperature in each apartment individually, and how do you do it?
Yeah, not yet, but I hope in the future we can also control in the apartment level. We are controlling the heat substation, so we are controlling the building level, the heating. But in the future I hope we can also include in the system like the smart thermostat in apartment, because the customer and resident really has been asking that can I really steering my bedroom temperature lower in the night time and in the living room, or if I'm away 1 week holiday you can put the lower. So in the future we are now actually starting the pilot in next winter with its smart thermostat including also.
Yes.
Hi, what kind of smart thermostat then you including? So what is then the thermostat?
In this pilot we are using Danfoss thermostat. But of course we are interested to hear if somebody has some other thermostats in the market.
Hi, so I was just wondering...
Can you put, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Since there is more controlling of the individual apartments, and that's your ambition, how do the residents feel about the increased controlling and the data that they can get? Like, when you talk to them about it, like, how do you frame it? What is the feedback?
Yeah, the feedback has been really positive. So they are really interesting to see the data from application, and they are really using, because we are of course checking every day how many people are using the application. So they are really going. Maybe I don't know how often they are go the individual, but there is quite many people every day to see in the data. So I think it's really interesting because it affects your health also. What is the actually inside your apartment? What is the indoor quality there? So yeah, I haven't seen any problem that, because we are service provider. So, but I think in the future the people are more concerned and they understand how much the air really affects your health. So we are believing that it's really in the future, it's coming more and more, and in the future I think we have to measure also the two from the apartment and some other also things. So it's coming, but the sensors are really little bit too expensive nowadays if you have more what we are measuring. But it's coming, I think.
You mentioned the overall 10% reduction in energy consumption. Is that sufficient to cover all the costs you have with installing the sensor systems? Is there a business case already positive?
Yeah. It's something like the payback time is something like 3 or 4 years from the system. Yeah.
Is there any requirements for project systems wiring horizontal, vertical of heat? Requirements to project system of building, vertical or horizontal?
Sorry, I don't know. I don't know if there is some requirements.
Okay.
Okay, thank
think
you
we
very
should
much.
let you off the
Good
hook now.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now I would like to introduce our next speaker, Thomas, who is going to talk about the largest implementation of Nest smart metering in Europe. 700,000 meters, I think. So, yes, this.
So, thank you very much, and I'd like to move this session a little bit from PowerPoint to you. The first question I have for you is, who of you has been involved in some way as supplier, partner, rollout, utility in a smart metering rollout? Anyone involved? Were you happy with the timelines from your first involvement until the deployment? You were. So, my first touch point with Havslund was back in 2008, when this show was named Metering and Billing, and everything was around smart metering and billing applications. I think the last 10 years it has been evolving tremendously in terms of the broadness of the topics. And in 2008, one of my former colleagues is here from a previous company I worked with. The salesperson from Norway dropped in the office and said, "We have one Havslund rollout," in 2008. So only one more thing to do and we have one Norway with Havslund rollout. Interesting thing is now, 10 years later, I'm talking about a successful rollout in Havslund in a completely different setup for a completely different company. And that's, from my experience, a very usual timeline for smart metering to be rolled out. You have so many different influences and variables to consider, from regulation down to technology choices, down to your own strategy choices. And I think, and there I must give a big hand to Havslund, the way they have managed this process was very transparent and very, very collaborative with all the players around. And as the subject of this session is Nordic innovation from the Nordics, I want to show you a very good innovation from the Nordics, which has been implemented in this rollout. This is not the first Nokia phone. Yeah? This is a smart meter from Idon in Finland, and it has an incredible computing power and intelligence in it. So it doesn't look like an iPhone, sure. You cannot touch it, but it has a lot of, let's say, very smart and future-proof technology inside. And I just pass it around just for you to get a feeling, because not every one of us has ever touched a smart meter. So, meanwhile, I'll start the presentation. Does it move when I click like this, or yeah? No. Yeah, okay. So let us start with the usual presentation of the, let's say, the utility that is putting these smart meters in place. That's Havslund Net. The number of customers is around 700,000. You can imagine 700,000 smart meters, so every customer has one now. They're expecting population growth, which means that the system must grow with the city. So you cannot have a deterministic network on this smart metering rollout. And let's say the number of substations of 169 and secondary distribution substations of 17,000 is quite impressive. And when you want to do a leverage on smart metering, not only for billing, like we thought 10 years ago, but for smart grid applications, you need to be future-proof in a way and include also the secondary substations and substations data into your system. So you must be very, very flexible on the way how you use and what kind of how you use a smart meter and what kind of smart meters you are deploying. And in many smart metering projects, the main obstacle in the beginning was the choice of the communication network. And very often the cost and let's say the timings were exploding based on this choice for the last 5 to 10% of the meters to be deployed. Because for some reasons the infrastructure of choice has not been developed the way that you can reach 100%. And Havslund was taking a lot of work and R&D work into exactly this topic, as well as on the governance topic. And I think in a smart metering rollout, these are the two main factors for success to avoid to avoid big surprises on your cost side. The key figures of this rollout, as of today, they have been published by IDON and Havslund, I think 2 weeks ago, is it's animated. How does it work? Yeah. So I wipe. 700,000 meters, as I said. 700,000 of those smart meters have been deployed in a 24 months time. And that's also crucial. How many meters do you get out a day with how many installers? There were 143 installers in the field. And I avoid or don't ask you for calculation. I did that before. So it was a maximum of 1,737 a day installed per day. That's around 12 meters per installer per day. So you can imagine that this installer has no time to look for coverage of mobile, to set up some, let's say, cables for the communication, or to, let's say, register in a public network and get a feedback. So one of the paradigms of this rollout was that the people in the field should have nothing to do with the activation of the meter in the field. Just do the electrical part where they are educated for. Plug the plugs in. You see the electrical three-phase connection down there. Go alongside, have the appointment done by a professional installer or work order company, and that led to an impressive figure of 95% meters installed as scheduled, which means only 5% of the people have somehow messed up their appointment. It doesn't mean that we have a failure rate of 5% in the meters. It means that 5% of the people weren't at home when they were scheduled. But the worst case that can happen in a smart meter rollout, as you all know, is second visits. It kills your business case. It's for any installation is second visits. And especially when you are on a technology choice, the choice for telecommunication or for making these guys sending out the data is crucial for you. And we are very proud that I just had a phone call with our partners that 100% of the meters today deliver the data, and most of them in time. And the failures are not coming from the communication system. They are not coming from the meter failures. It's just some delays on minor stuff, yeah? That we don't reach 100%. It's 99.95. Yeah? And all players who are involved in this rollout can be very proud of this figure as of today. Normally, I was visiting a huge control center a few weeks back, where several million meters are managed, and it took them 2 years to get to this figure after all installment have been done. So 2 years of really hard work and money until you got to this figure. And Havslund is already at this figure with 700,000. Sorry, excuse me, 700,000 meters. Yeah? So this is, I think, one of the major achievements from IDON is, and that deserves a big hand, is that no meter was delayed. So there was the supply chain was fully under control. And those of you who are involved in supply chains as of today, you know that this is the biggest problem that we have in the industry as of today. Yeah? We have this problem of passive components, delivery times and so on. It's not in our hands, but for whatever and however they did an excellent job on delivering these meters on time, and that was also a special thing for that Havslund mentioned in our briefing, that this was the key success factor on the supply chain in the rollout. And I would really love to give a big hand on the IDON people. Are they here? Bravo! But now I'm coming back to Havslund, and I said that the planning phase is the most important one. And as a utility, I can only recommend you to have a plan, to have an idea, and to execute on this plan. And the background for the investment for Havslund, as for most smart meter rollouts, was the regulatory requirements. That these meters have to be rolled out until the 1st of January 2019, a full rollout. So we have November, I think we can tick the box in Havslund. Great. And the project strategy, and this is a key thing, you have to be clear on what role you want to play in your own rollout. And in this case, Havslund Net has really decided in a very early stage that they themselves will become a system integrator. So they do not outsource the full project to some system integrator that just gets an SLA when the data has to be delivered and gets a certain, let's say, a certain amount of money for data delivery. They just decided to do everything, control, steer, integrate everything themselves. And setting up a partnership model. Yeah? So, no ceding of responsibility. The final responsibility for the final rollout on the 1st of Jan is with Havslund Net, and it was fully under control. The next one is very important. I saw a lot of smart metering rollouts, I wouldn't say failing, but delaying and exploding in cost, where there was no partnership model with the suppliers. It was more a supplier relation, so how you treat, let's say, a hardware supplier, and bash him and punishments and a lot of legal involvement and details on the contractual side. Instead of solving the problem, it was more a fight of getting the penalties done. In this case of Havslund, the partnership model was all in one boat achieving this objective of the 1st of January 2019. So trust and common objectives are very important when you manage your partnerships. And the meter strategy is very clear, that optimize investment cost and expected cost of operations. So I often, in my previous assignment, I was more on the security side, and I often got the answer, why should we put a security chip in when it's not in the requirements? It just makes the bomb €1, €2 more expensive, and then I'm not competitive anymore. So that was not a partnership model discussing what is the best solution in order to avoid long-term cost and maybe early replacements because of a security flaw. It was around really how to get the BOM cost down, and this single piece, this let's say separated view on single elements does not necessarily bring you the expected lowest cost of operations or total cost of ownership. Yeah? So BOM is an important topic, but it's not part of the TCO. And for sure, what I'm talking about as Wirepass is that they needed an experienced supplier of proven mesh radio technology. So they have spent a lot of effort in finding the right communication technology and in, let's say, defining their requirements, not only for the regulatory rollout, but also for the future, on where we have many more data sets coming out of meters, like loads, like smart grid applications, like balancing on the participating on the energy market and so on. So they have taken this into consideration when they started designing or gave the requirements to the meter vendors. And one more thing, which do we have regulators here? Is there someone from regulation in Europe? No, unfortunately. One little piece in Norway is different from the EU. It is that the net company, the DSO company, is allowed to a certain extent to have R&D cost for the development of the solution. In most other countries, this R&D cost cannot be capitalized towards the customer in the end of the day. And under certain circumstances, here it was allowed to, let's say, invest a little bit in the development of the solution that they have choice in order to make it better and not to lose the money. So now coming to this mesh solution that finally won the contest after 10 years, or let's say after 6 years, because the assignment was done in 2015. So what we have done, and that's the innovation part of the Nordics as well, is what Wirepass has done is we have decoupled the hardware from the software on the radio technology. Meaning that you have a low BOM cost because you're using off-the-shelf radio IC, radio chip. It's not a Wirepass chip. We are not doing chips or selling chips. We are selling the hardware on top of it, the hardware abstraction and the software on top of it, which is only focusing on routing the data and on managing how the data flows to the head-end systems are organized. And this solution with the off-the-shelf radio chip and the flashed Wirepass stack has been implemented in this meter that you're having. And this makes the meter behave like a smart node. So there's no additional infrastructure involved in this rollout. No concentrators, no further repeaters and so on. Yeah, it's also thanks to a very good design, antenna design, and towards a very good rollout planning. So on where they put the uplinks into the internet or into the head-end system. And every device that we are passing around right now is acting as a smart node, which means it can be acting as a router, but it can be an endpoint, and it decides by itself what role it plays. And if you now think of a city, you have different conditions. One is 5 kilometers away. He needs to power out the maximum power of the 860 megahertz to find one or two other meters that then transport the data up to a meter which has a 3G connection. I'll show you a bit later the architecture. But you also have situations, and these are the more tricky ones, where you have 50 meters in a metal cabinet in a basement in an apartment building, and you don't want to make the installer do something or somebody in the back end do something like network tabling or something like that. And this stack is allowing you to really automatically recognize the radio environment, and then the meter is just tearing down its output power if he recognizes there are 50 around me and they are all powering out like hell. So automatically 49 of them go down very, 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 very much in the output power to only see 2 or 3 of their neighbors on this very short distance, even though you're using 870 megahertz. And one of them, who has the best signal to the next meter outside that can be measured, keeps the 500 milliwatts. So you can read out these 50 meters in the basement, in a metal cabinet, in the same network as you can read out the 5 kilometers away. And that's literally the innovation that this stack has. And on top of this, and this is where I'm deeply impressed by your presentation on what you do with the sensing, the behavior of this stack is improved every day, because we are not doing only smart metering and just push it for this particular use case. We are doing this on 2.4 gigahertz for asset tracking, which has power constraints. We are doing this for lighting, which has latency constraints. So we are optimizing this every day, and that also leads to the fact that in this smart metering project, a lot of R&D has been involved over time that is coming from other use cases, but which is helping the performance. Yeah? So the architecture looks a bit like this. There's a radio module inside with a off-the-shelf radio IC and a Wirepass stack, and every XYZ meter You see here, these are these upper meters, have a 3G or 4G modem activated with a SIM card. And funnily, it's a pure Nordic combination. So that the mobile operator is an MVNO from Sweden, now acquired by Sierra. And this network below this, you see this uplink meters or uplink points, which are mainly based in substations in this case, but can also be simple meters with an additional modem on top. The ratio is in this case between 30 and 50 meters per uplink, because Havslund wants to be very, very resilient, or very, very, let's say, redundant on the communication. So that means if one of these uplink meters fails, they have at least we have a automated load balancing in the system. They can reroute this meter, this data, or this set of data to the next one, and that's all happening automatically. And we are now expanding this, or we are having use cases in apartment buildings with a lot of tags and sensors, which could theoretically, if they use the 870 megahertz, connect to this network and use it as uplinks. So we are completely agnostic on application. That gives Havslund also the opportunity to add additional other applications than metering into the same network. So they are, let's say, somehow free of now the communication choices. On the OPEX side, we have this system does not create other recurrent revenues than the data, the recurrent cost, than the data rate for the mobile operator on these every 30 to 50 points. And there is no, let's say, no service level to a third party to be paid for planning the network, for maintaining the network, and so on. What can be next? The discussion is always around, the meter firmware has been outdated after 3 to 4 years. We want to have this and this and this application on top. Many systems cannot download firmware, sign firmware, keep the security. This system has been 100% OTA capable, and all the processes of a OTA standard, over-the-air update standard, are implemented. And the system is also prepared to not flood the network. It's a very intelligent, let's say, propagation of the new firmware. And this is something that we have as a feedback is really crucial, which has not been thought of when the first planning happened. There it was about compliance to the regulation, and now it's about, hey, we can do many more things with a smart meter than we thought in the initial phase. But doing a re-rollout or a revisit or a local flashing is by far too expensive. So what they are doing now is really they can control the meters and download grid-side applications, and maybe in the future flexibility services into the meter. So the key takeaways from this successful rollout is have a strategy, execute in partnerships. That's so crucial. Not everything went as smooth as I tell you. There is a lot of steps to be done and a lot of, let's say, difficult things during this kind of projects to solve. But sure, I'm not here to share this. But it's always execution in partnership. It was not throwing things at people or blaming or finger pointing. It's really always around how do we solve the problem, how do we reach the objectives. And I think that's also, when we talk about Nordic innovation, a role model on how to work together. Include a contingency of use cases on top of on top of being compliant. Even regulators can think of new things in the next 5 years. Be prepared for that, and I think that's a very good example on how to be prepared. And to the regulators, I would always say, please include some R&D cost on the to be claimed on the regulated side, because otherwise they can only use innovation off the shelf and not develop solutions that fit to their needs and to their purposes. So, waiting for presentation. Thank you very much. And any questions? Any questions? Oh, you want to ask questions? Any? Or is smart metering so boring in the meantime that you don't have questions anymore? I don't find it boring.
I think we have time for a few questions, if there's any.
Good. Then everything's said. Right, thank you very much.
Thank you once again. I think now you're all here. I think we should maybe skip the break and go on with the next two presentations, so that we don't lose your attention. So I would like to invite Peter Sørensen from Frederiksberg Forsyning, the utility company in Frederiksberg in Denmark.
Yes, my name is Peter Sørensen. I'm working for a utility company called Frederiksberg Forsyning. It's located in the center of Copenhagen, and I'm here to talk about how we build smart city network or smart utility network. And my function at my job is like I was head of employing that. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are, like what type of company we are, why we're building what we are building, and how we designed our network. And it's a bit interesting to hear like guy who was up here before, how they did in Norway, and we just have a different approach. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are and how it's going. Frederiksberg is located in the center of Copenhagen. Copenhagen is all the way around us, the municipality of Copenhagen. It's all high-rise building, and there's 105,000 people living there. And it's one of the most dense area in the northern hemisphere, especially in Scandinavia. We have 52,000 households, whereof 51% are living alone in them. And it's mainly apartment buildings. There's only 3% one-family homes, and they're mainly located in one side, in the western side of the municipality. Frederiksberg is probably a little bit the rich area of Copenhagen. It's more expensive to buy houses and all that, and they have a really green profile as well. They have a lot of trees, there's a lot of regulations, what you're allowed to, and actually it's only 8.7 square kilometers. The people there are they're more wealthy people, but they're also very spoiled people, so they demand a lot, so they're really hard sometimes to service, and they all know the mayor when they complain. So it's the utility company where I'm employed. Our core service is water, gas. We have 6 windmills located, of course, outside Copenhagen. There's no room in Copenhagen for them. And then we have the sewage system, and the latest of our service is district cooling. On top of that, we're doing a bit of service as well, like for all the citizens, and also a bit outside the municipality. All the service or all the utilities are non-profit, except for district cooling. So we can't make any revenue, or it have to go back to the customers. So we were at a state where we had 5,000 water meters. We don't have that many smart meters or water meters or heat meters, but we had 5,000 water meters, and they're all the old mechanical meters, and we decided to change it to smart meters. And the same with the district heating, they're already smart meters. So we just had to change the communication, so we card in them so we could start read them more often. We were desperate to get more data, so that's one of our cases, to build a new network that could get us all the data we needed. At the same time, we want to build something that was not only for smart meters and maybe some devices. We want to build a multi-communication network that could be used by the municipality as well, and maybe university and all that. And so that's what we started in 2015. And we're almost done now, like we're almost there, but I'll get back to that a little bit later. What we did was actually to use existing infrastructure and then pull over to the left. We pulled fiber, made a big fiber ring, optic fiber, and installed a certain number of cabinets. In these cabinets, it was located so we could actually start getting up in the air, because 65% of all the street lights in Copenhagen or in Frederiksberg is running on wire up in the air. So we decided to pull all the cables to access points so we could actually have Wi-Fi, including Wi-Fi and wireless M-Bus, whatever standard we want to have or we needed. And the card over to, the map over to the right is actually the light blue, is where we have optic fiber and power cable up in the air. And here's a printed drawing how we actually did it. We actually have installed a lot of cables and all that. And I don't know if it's wise, but now we have Wi-Fi all over. We're using to connect to heat installation like substation in basements and all kind of things. Gateways, we have connectivity to all this online, and that was really important for us. At the same time, we have all the other standards we can use as we please, because the business case, what we want was really like, if we want online data, we get it. We don't have to think of cost with a telecommunication company. So we decided to overscale it a little bit and invest a little bit extra, and that's what happened. And here is actually how many access points we needed to cover. It's every 100 meters pretty much. So mainly on wire, but there's also on street light poles. All the red is where it's optic fiber connected, and all the blue ones are mesh connected. The pictures to the right is just the way we designed it, where we actually placed it, and then we use the GIS system to see when made a buffer around each access points, and then we could see when it hit a building and where it got in between buildings, and then could we reach all the buildings. There's some backyard buildings as well we would like to reach. It's a bit hard when it's all 5-story or maybe even 3-story buildings, so to get coverage everywhere, but we pretty much succeeded on all public streets, public parks, public areas of the municipality to cover it. Yeah, where are we now and where are we going? We actually pretty much finished now. We have to change a few cards or radio cards in some smart meters, but otherwise it's all installed, and we are optimizing the network now to get all the data home from all our smart meters. It's about 10,000, and that's down to 16 seconds value, like for water meters, and maybe 1 to 2 minutes for district heating meters. We're not sure if we can use all the data yet. We hope we're looking at different systems to to cross all the data, and then one of our goals is, of course, out at the customer, deliver a good service and all that, but our network, both for district heating, we need to maintain that in 5 to 10 years. And can we push that 1 year? We save 50 million Danish kroner, or almost 10 million euro. By using this data, we can do it a little bit smarter, maybe only take small bits and pieces out. We're not sure we can do it yet, but we hope we can use all this data so we know exactly what flow in the pipelines, like what the pressure, temperature, everything is in any time. For water, our water pipelines have an average age of 80 years, so it's really old. Some are over 100 years old, the pipes, but they still function. But we are very concerned. We don't play a lot with pressure because we're very concerned it will get a lot of burst or leakage. But we'll do the same here. We'll actually cross all the data, find out exactly where see if we can find the leakage by using the data from the smart meters. And then on top of that, we have some wells located out in the network where we can measure the flow, but also the quality of water and all that. We're really gonna work with this data. So in the future, it's gonna really be interesting to see if we're good enough to do it, or if we're good enough to use this data. Of other things, of course, that's out to the customers. We're taking over a lot of the substations out at the customer for district heating. And by using Wi-Fi, we can actually connect online. We can go in if a customer calling in and say they don't have any heating, so we go online and just see if we can fix it, otherwise before we send out personnel or an expert. Another area we're working really much with is, and really close with the municipality, is the climate changes in general. We have the sewage system, and Copenhagen is hit by flooding a bit lately, and it's cost a lot of money. So we're going to use the same network to find out how to invest money right in climate streets and all that, and also basins, and to collect water, to hold back water, so the sewage system can handle it, because it'll be way too expensive to excavate and go down now. So that's another area. In that way, we also going to invest in weather stations, which we're also going to use for district heating, because we reckon if we find the way the wind is coming, the speed and everything, we can actually see how it affects buildings, and then we can at the same time monitor the consumption in the apartment buildings and all that, and then hopefully we can make some savings, regulate it down, up the temperature, do something, deliver a better service. Another area is, of course, mobility. We can use it, and that's mainly the municipality, but it's really important when we build this network that it was not only to read smart meters, it was also to expand it, scale it up, so the municipality can use it for mobility, for parking, which have big influence on the utility company as well, with road work and all that kind of things. How can we be allowed to block off the main streets in peak hour? We can maybe do that by using data from cameras and all that kind of things. And by installing this network, it'll take 1 or 2 days, and we have 10 cameras up running. It's really fast, scalable, because we have the network all over already. So we have power, we have connectivity, Doesn't matter which platform or LoRa, Wi-Fi, wireless MBOS. We could also use narrowband IoT if it makes sense in certain area. Like then it's not our network, but it's like telecommunication. We actually don't mind as long as we get the data home and we do it in less the amount we want, if you can say it that way. Yeah, I don't know if I went too fast, but any questions?
Perfect. Questions? If we have anyone? Not so far? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I would like to welcome Christian Bøjarsen.
Bøjarsen. Yep.
It's the first time I see that last name.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes, hello. My name is Christian Bøjarsen, and I'm head of office at a small company called Aalborg Energicenter, and it's part of the utility company in Aalborg. Aalborg is a city based in Denmark, in northern part of Jutland. And what I want to talk about today is how we think smart energy in Aalborg. What we do smart today and what we think we can do smart in the future as well. Just short of us, the utility company in Aalborg, we is a mixed utility company. We have district heating, we have town gas, we have natural gas distribution and sales. We have district cooling starting in 2020 with our first customer there. We have a power plant producing both electricity and heat. We have the company that I come from, Aalborg Energicenter, which key area is to make energy savings, yearly energy savings of 65,500 megawatt hours a year. And we have a water and sewage utility company, and last but not least, we have a renovation company. So, firstly, I'll talk just a couple of things about what we do today that's smart. We start district cooling. Now, our first customer we are having on our system in 2020, and the way we do it smart, it's a hospital being built in Aalborg right now. And what we do smart is we use water from a very deep sea we have in Aalborg, which is all year round between 5 to 13 degrees. And by using that, we can deliver district cooling with a COP of at least 30. So that's one thing that's quite smart. Besides producing cooling, we also produce heat to our district heating system. Furthermore, we think that just district heating is quite smart. One project is this nursery, this gardener in Aalborg. He had 11,000 square meters of greenhouses. He converted coal and oil to district heating, and the price for converting that, prices for modifying, was 350,000 euro. He gets subsidies from the government for 230,000, and he made yearly savings of 40,000 euro. So for him it was a good case. But the smart thing about district heating is he went from this, a bit more than 500 tons of coal and 7,000 liters of oil. His system was unstable He couldn't rely on it. It was expensive, and it's dirty and polluted. And he went to this. You see, he's quite happy. He went to this. He uses a bit more than 2 million kilowatt hours of heating. It's safe. He can rely on it. It never goes out when it gets cold. It never stops. It's sustainable, and for him it's cheap. And what's smart is if we put this CO2 saving in perspective. He goes just by converting this coal to district heating. He saved 1,250 tons of CO2. And yeah, just what we say is just converting one gardener, one company, that equals to putting 1,200 Teslas on the street. You know, picking 1,200 fossil-fueled cars away and putting electrical fueled cars on the street. So that's really a big part of what we think is smart. If we turn to our company, how it is today, the mix of district heating in Aalborg, today it's based by 35% of renewable energy, and the rest is fossil fuel, is coal, and it's oil, it's natural gases. But we have to transform, make a transition from the fossil fuels to renewable energies. The first thing is geothermal energy. Starting next year, we are planning on converting 100 megawatts of coal energy to geothermal energy. And it's a big part of this transition the district heating is going through. We have right now we are going close to the fourth generation of district heating, where it's fossil free, CO2 neutral. That means that we don't get the district heating. We don't get the heating from one big boiler as it is today, our electricity plant. We don't get it from there. We'll get it from numerous different producers. We'll get it from windmills. We'll get it from solar panels. We'll get it from geothermal energy. We'll get it from surplus energy from the industry, from whoever can produce energy for us. So that means that we have to, when we move from this kind of production that we really know, the coal production, we go to producing this heat with a very broad, a very different kind of, a very numerous kind of producers. But that also means that we have to make a transition for the consumer and integrate them, and integrate the household, integrate the buildings in the energy system. It's not, we can't just continue seeing the consumer as a customer. We have to see them more like an integrated part of the whole energy system for making this our district heating system work in the future. So how do we do that? Right now we are introducing remote meters. We are halfway through. We have installed around 20,000 remote readed meters. We are introducing what we call Varme Plus. It's Heat Plus. I'll come back to that a bit later. We are working with a project with the local university where we try to integrate the households in the energy system. And we are introducing heat surplus from all our customers: industry, grocery stores, buildings, our cooling plants, everywhere where we can use surplus energy. This watch, that's one of the first main things that we are introducing. We are going live with this almost as we speak. It's an app based on your smart device, your iPhone, your iPad, or your smartphone, and it can include all your utilities. You can put your electricity in there, you can put your heat in there, district heat, you can put your water, you can put your gas consumption in there. And the idea here is that it's live data. So when it's 12 o'clock, you can see what you have used from 11 to 12 o'clock. You can see your consumption almost live, because we think we need to produce live data to make it usable. But furthermore, besides presenting this data, we also, of course, need to put in notification and alarms. We want to benchmark each customer to his neighbor or someone similar to him. We use intelligent budgets. That means that the system, this app will know when it's cold. It will know today it's cold, today it's windy. This customer will probably use this much. And furthermore, we want to introduce personal energy advices. It should be advices that goes directly to each customer, to each household. We're going to use the energy label so that we can see where the building is weak. For instance, we can send them when we can see maybe that it's blowing from west. We can see that the windows in the west side of the building is leaking, and we can give them that personal advice that the windows on this facade of the building should maybe be changed, or you should be noted by this. We can say if you need more insulation in the roof, or if you use too much standby power. And the next thing that we really want to use this for is also to predict when something is going wrong. We can use it to predict that when the household system is going bad, it's breaking down. We think we can use it for that. The next thing we're introducing is this Heat Plus. The mirror, the picture in the top corner here, it's a heating unit, and our biggest problem in getting new ones of these ones up, it's that it costs about 2,000-3,000 euros, and it's not very sexy to buy this kind of thing. It's more interesting to buy a new kitchen, or it's more interesting to buy a new car, or a trip to Spain or something. But we have seen that over 50% of our consumers has errors in their heating system. And by changing the heating unit, we can make quite big energy savings. So our plan is that we want to be a part of the customer. We want to own this. So we are proposing to the customer that he can rent this for just 250 Danish kroner. What's that? That's 30, 40 euros per month. He can get this for free, and we put it up, we maintain it. If it breaks down, we shift it. And furthermore, we can, as talked about here earlier, we can use this this heat exchanger or this heat unit to close for the energy when it's expensive. We can heat up the building when it's cheap for us to produce heat, and we can also minimize the peak loads throughout the day. So that's the next thing we hope to do with this. What we need to do more now that we have all this data, we get a lot of data from all these. We have 40,000 meters going out there, and they are sending data back every hour. In fact, we can get data if we want. We can get data for every 15 seconds, I think. But we get a lot of data, so we have to use that smart. And that's our next goal. It is to use all the data we get in and use it smart. We need to use all the data from meters. We need to use the weather data. We need to use the energy label data from houses and integrate sensors in the city. Use this Internet of Things. And the business case that we have seen says that the savings for us is between 70 to 100 euro per meter by doing this a bit more intelligent, by integrating the household, by using all the data that we have. Today our biggest consumer is the pavement. We said that our biggest consumer is the heat loss. So if we can move to the next generation of district heating, reducing the temperature that we send out to the customers, to the consumers, and we can reduce the temperature that comes back, we can save very much a large sum of money. So just to sum up, our the travel we have to go through is to move from fossil energy to CO2 neutral energy to renewable energy. We have to integrate the buildings in the energy system to get there. We have to use the district heating system. We have to use the buildings as a battery for energy. What we think is smart is use the energy when the wind blows. We have to make the consumers VIP consumers. They have to be an integrated part of the whole system. We have to make it possible to displace the consumption, to move the energy consumption to where it's cheap for us to produce and where it's cheap for us to sell, of course. And that means also we have to have differentiated prices throughout the day. And last but not least, we have to make the transition from consumers to prosumers. They have to be an integrated part of the system. They have to use energy when it's wise. They have to use cooling when it's wise. And also they have to produce energy when they are in surplus of energy. Yes, that was my words. Any questions?
Yes, I think we have time for a few questions.
So you were saying that you have real-time data.
Yeah.
Do you like what kind of sensors, what kind of data, what network do you use?
You said what kind of data we have?
Yeah, what kind of data, what network do you use, what sensors do you use?
We the meters we have is from Kamstrup. We don't have at the moment we don't have sensors inside the household where we can measure temperature, but as we get our own heat exchanger in there, we'll get sensors in there as well. But we measure the district heating they use, the temperature sets, everything about the district heating, and also if there's errors in the system, we measure that as well. The technology I think is MBUS, wireless MBUS, and we have concentrators throughout the city, and getting all the data back from there.
Hi. Have you got any feedback from your customer about this new?
The app?
All the other systems.
No, I don't think at the moment, because the app launches the 1st of November.
Okay, so it's almost there, but so.
So it's very, very, very new for us. Yeah. And for the other system, the heat exchanger we are putting in, we started that the 1st October of this year, but we have a very big, the interest is very, very big.
Okay.
I think around 75% of all our new customers that have signed with us since the 1st of October, they have chosen this type of solution.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
We think we will get somewhere between 25 to 40% of all our customers who wants to buy this. That's what we have seen in other places where they have tried similar things.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, otherwise I would like to invite our 5 speakers to the stage, and then we will finalize with a short panel discussion in relation to what you have heard here today. Okay, I would like to start this session by asking you a few questions. And one of the first things I would ask you about is respect to the whole policy environment and the regulation environment in the Nordic countries. And my question to you is, do you think the necessary policy is in place, and have it also have the effect such that we also have the necessary regulations in order to facilitate a green transition of our whole energy system, both when it comes to the electrical system and the heating, district heating and district cooling? I would like to hear your reflection on, do you think we have the right conditions policy-wise and regulation-wise?
Should I start? Both yes and no. That's a political answer, isn't it? But one of our main problems in making the transition for fossil fuel production of energy to CO2 neutral, to renewable energy, is that we still have regulations that states that when we produce heat, we also need to produce electricity, and that's quite a big barrier for us, because many of the solutions we are looking in is primarily heating solutions and doesn't produce energy as well, electricity as well.
Is that the same situation you see in Finland? No. I was just wondering, Pia, you mentioned that you could use Öland as a small-scale Finland to test, because I think you mentioned something about you could actually do without the regulation that was for the rest of the country, or do you have some special conditions?
Well, I think that for the energy system development, we also need development for the regulation. And of course, we don't know yet exactly what kind of changes we need. So it's good to have a kind of test platform where we can also test different kind of regulation models and then give the feedback to our decision makers.
So you are allowed to actually change the existing regulation, try something else out?
We are allowed to test it.
I think the major. So looking around Europe, the Nordic regulators are progressive. The question should not be, do we have the right regulation in place, but are we progressing in the direction of learning from these kind of projects in a way that we can evolve regulation to still have security of supply in the electricity system. And I think sector coupling is one of these sandbox models where we have to put a lot of effort in. And the Nordic regulators are all very open for these kind of discussions around sandbox. If you go the further south you go in Europe, the more difficult is it for you to get into these test bed environments.
Okay, thank you. The other thing I would like you to reflect on is with respect to the financial economic tools that are instruments that are in place, and also if we think the right incentives are in place in order to facilitate the transition. I mean, can we establish the necessary return on investment when we have to make changes, or are the horizon too long, or what challenges or barriers do you see?
Yeah, of course, all the solutions should be like for the customer that they benefit also money-wise. But I think at least the IoT and that kind of things, the prices are getting so down now. And when we get the new sensors in the market, then I think it's not the price issue anymore. But of course, if you are thinking about the heat production side, then it's big investment, and it's quite hard nowadays to put money investment in the big heat power plants, for example, because you don't know what is the situation with the legislation and that kind of thing. So the investment situation, I think, is quite hard nowadays for the district heating companies.
So you think we are close on a price cut where you can afford to put in actually sensors in every room, in every apartment, and scale up city-wise?
Yeah.
You compare to the cost of...
It's cheaper than having Netflix every month, so...
I just add to all that. Our investment was probably 3 times as more than we had to get the meter data home. But we thought, we might as well think big and try to get as much home as possible, and also look into the future and see what's possible. Like, there'll come so many new technologies. How can we build something that's scalable, But of course we have to think of the customers at all the time, otherwise we'll be penalized later if we're wasting too much money, because we are still a public company, so we have to be wise about it. But otherwise, it's when it comes to apartment buildings and all that, it's in Copenhagen. There's already a lot of sensors on radiators. Well, we have the network. We can already see all these sensors. We might as well take them home to the company who's handling the normal finance for all the buildings, the apartment buildings, and maybe even make somehow get into those people who live there and make them turn down the heating or think more about the heating consumption. And and that's how we look at it, as a multi-network investment and not just smart meter. So, yeah.
I think the main challenge is not to impose technology to the end users in terms of incentive setting. I think the last technology that is imposed to the end users is this kind of meter. And if you don't have a case for yourself which is beneficial, it's very difficult to justify in a few years, in the next round of metering rollouts, to put a sensor that measures data of a consumer, to make him pay for installing the sensor and to make him pay for sending the data to someone who sends him a bill based on this data. This is a very, very crucial question on how do we benefit from it. And for example, in Oslo, these use cases are really about how to stabilize the grid with all these EV chargers coming in. And this is the problem of the future, and there we need to set the incentives to solve this issue. Rather than asking on the right, let's say, on fixing a technology for sensing or for IoT technologies or for imposing something to the consumer. And maybe we get these for free because it just is a mean to balance the grid and get the money from the EV chargers. Just to put 3 more in the road instead of digging copper. And I think these kind of cross-sectoral and sector-coupled incentives is important, but not imposing technology. That's very important. Leaving the innovation to the market.
Then I would like to ask you, now listening to the different projects you have been doing and pilots, do you think the technology is mature enough now to big scale rollout, or do you think there's still challenges that need to be addressed? Maybe not only technology-wise, but also how we deal with the implementation of the technology, if we have to go from pilots to big scale rollout.
If I start, I think we have quite much technology already available, but it's a little bit problematic how it could be integrated to whole system and how it works there. So I think we still need development in that sector.
Yeah, I think that technology is already there, but we need more that how we can have the consumers, also the end users, what are their interests and learning by doing. So we have been asking quite much from the users that how do you like it? Do you like this? We have this data, and what kind of data you want to have, and you only learned when you are speaking with the customer that what is their problem, what we can fix it. There has to be some problem from the customer side that we can fix it. So I think that's the one key thing, that we should do more like the energy company together with the customer, the development work.
Yeah, I will like to add. I also think that the technology is mature enough, and I think our biggest issue is that we are not mature enough. We are not smart enough still to use all the big data that we get, and that's really a key issue for, at least for us, for the next many years or next years, to really use and exploit all the data.
Maybe on the technology side, I see a slow movement coming from stovepipe solutions to integrated horizontal solutions. But it's a very slow way because, especially in the energy industry, the thinking is very vertical. So you have a valve, a sensor, and now you think of how to get the data out through a valve, sensor, IoT platform, whatever thing. Building your own communication, so not using, let's say, horizontalizing the technology, but using stovepipe solutions, and then say, okay, but my valve business case is not working. My sensor business case alone is not working. So how to engage in the system level, already in the lower level of the value chain, in an early stage, and to get this integrated in an early stage on the concept phase is a very challenging topic which I face when discussing with utilities about these kind of solutions. And in the long run, they are all running into the cost trap, scaling up. You see that on the Horizon 2020 projects everywhere.
Now, Thomas, you mentioned that the second visit kills the business case. So I was just wondering, do you think that in the craftsmen, the technicians who have to, the electricians who have to install, is the skill set ready, or is it something where maybe the technology is ready, the suppliers are ready, but when we want to scale up, we want to roll out, do we look into maybe an educational challenge in order to make sure that craftsmen are ready to deliver this kind of services, or based on your experience, does it seem that also have been covered?
It was directed to me. To be honest, if you have to do a lot of education to an electrician, you did something wrong. It's really about how to facilitate life. It's a bit design thinking. So already on the process, already in the installation process. So what happens when he knocks the door? Do we have to show the thing? How friendly? Does he have to speak our language whatsoever? And the next thing is about the tech quality. The thing must work, plug and play. If you're going into a consumer's home and you start drilling holes or doing some weird stuff, that's not creating trust. So like an iPhone, switch it on, it works. And a lot of these, let's say, especially funded projects have not considered this design thinking. They are really doing the hardcore technology and took this as a kind of friendly user topic. And then you fail in scaling. I think we have no education problem. If you have one, you have done something wrong in your design.
I think that was a good answer.
Yeah, I agree with that also. And you also need to design your services so that they are easy to use and they will work.
Yeah, we have learned that people doesn't want to know the electricity consumption with kilowatt hours. They want to, it's easier to, okay, how many euros I have used. So we are showing the euros in the first, and then we have the kilowatt hours if there is some engineer who want to have the knowledge exactly 1 hour time how much they have used. But I think that's really something new for energy companies, that we are really learning what is the most of the people, not only the engineers, but most of the people, how we should show the data. And I think in the future we learn so much more how we can use the data. We are now collecting the data, as you say, but we are not using the data as much as we could be. So I think in the couple of next year we are so much wiser in that field.
Just going to add to that, because we really want to do what you're doing, putting Danish kroner, not euro, but so that they can see how much money it costs. And especially with cooling, like if they're really bad at cooling the water we're sending out to them for district heating, they need to see. And the only way they see it is kroner, Danish kroner or euro. To add to the other question was, we actually installing, we have people out installing another radio card in our meters, and we actually built an app. So because we want more information when we are out in all the
location. We want to see what installation, what pump, what controller, that controller installation, if there's anything with the insulation and all that. So we build an app so they can take photos, but it's really intuitive. It's really easy for the people. They don't need a long education or anything like that because it's so important to. Because it's so easy to make mistakes, so it have to be very simple.
Now the consumers have been mentioned a few times, and also how to use data from their behavioral patterns. Do you think that the consumers are ready, or do any of them think that this is a kind of invasive of their private life? You mentioned, for instance, like you have the temperature in their rooms, you might have the humidity, and you mentioned that you could tell them if they should change some of the windows. And if they don't really know why you tell them exactly that it's the two windows at the south of the house, it might seem a bit invasive. So you think the consumers are ready, or is there still a task to do there, or it's just because you are very selective when you choose your pilot and you're very selective with respect to your user segment?
I think the consumers are ready because I just realized that, for example, I'm using my mobile phone. I don't anymore go to bank. I'm doing everything with my mobile phone. I have Netflix in my mobile phone. I'm listening to music from my mobile phone. So it's quite natural that I'm controlling in the future also my apartment by my mobile phone. So it's coming, but I think it's still the energy company is a little bit lacking behind all the other fields in the market, in people's lives. It's already there, but we are lacking that. We have to now get fast new services to them, but I think the consumers are ready.
Yeah, it was also a concern for us if it was too invasive going there, but there's always the 2% of the consumers that are never ready. But our experience is the same, that the consumer really wants our help. They really want us to help them. They really want us to own their heating unit, because it's for us. It's, of course, for us it's very, very interesting, everything of this, but the consumer don't think it's interesting. They just need comfort, and they just need to they really just need help to know when something is wrong, and they don't need to have the concern every day.
Yeah, and I think the world is changing quite much when the next generation, the younger people who is now like 20, 25, they don't want to anymore own the apartments. They don't want to anymore own the car. Our generation, I'm almost 40, so I have own apartment, I have own car. But the next generation, they don't want to own, so they want to rent the heat substation. They want to everything to have like the service. They are used to it, that everything has a service fee, in monthly fee. So I think that the world is changing in that kind of things, that people want to concentrate their own life, not like the devices. They just want everything is fine. They want to know that everything is fine. If something wrong, they get alert. And they want that everything is automated. They don't want to do something anymore in the heat substation by themselves.
Well, I like to see that, like, we have this my data about the healthcare nowadays. So I will see it in the future. We will also have my data of our electricity consumption and the housing and living and all kind of those things.
I'm sorry for being rebellious. I would never speak of a consumer if I were a utility, because it reflects the centralized nature of your thinking, saying he pays me as a consumer for consuming energy. I would talk about either a citizen or a participant in the revenue stream, because we talked about comfort and what he expects, or what we think they expect. But what motivates the change and the transition in the system is the participation in revenue streams. And you manage the participation of these people in the revenue streams in your way, with the service, with the investment, with managing the financing, and with the models of participation in the as a user instead of an owner. And I think when we start changing our language from a centralized consumer or even prosumer, I don't like this word neither, to a participant, to taking him serious as a part of the system. Every building will be a part of the system. It's not that you serve the building as a utility, it will be a part. And so how do you manage that? And I think we should start with this thinking and then continue from there.
Well, that leads me to my last question I have for you, because it seems that the infrastructure is mature, the technology is ready, and consumers are also ready to adopt the new technology. So do you think this is the time to rethink the business model and how service is delivered? I think one of the questions was almost yes.
That direction. No. I promise it's the last time I say something. It's not the time to rethink. It's urgency to not only start but to really think on how. So I'm a bit provocative, saying if you're a big utility of 40,000 people, how will you nurture them with these salaries that you have today, with the business model where some agile companies with 200, 300 people can be much quicker delivering the same or even better service to the participant in the system. So this is the challenge that you have, and I think treating suppliers as a partner, and no longer as, sorry, I'm a supplier to utilities for services since 20 years, and there's a big mismatch between what is really needed and the behavior towards these suppliers. It's really a cultural topic, to be honest. And we have, it takes 5 more years and then it's too late.
Yeah, I totally agree that we need partnership models, and no companies can do anything or all the things by themselves. They need partners, and it's good that we have startups. They are doing fast things, and I think we should do more cooperation with the startups and try to understand their logic and their fastness, and try to go with them.
Okay, I would like to thank our panel for participating here today and for their very interesting presentations. And I would like to thank all of you to be the participants here. And nice to see that you stayed for the whole session. And I will wish you a nice day. Yes, thank you.